Make the ground shake.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and it's finally November! November is my birth month, ladies and gentlemen. And for this month, I've got a lot of fun videos planned for this whole month. I got a game review, another villainous guide, 2 top 13s, and to start it off, let's start this one. Insomniac. I love you guys. The Spider-Man game that came, Marvel Spider-Man from 2018, was by far one of the best Spider-Man games fans could have hoped for. I'm not over-exaggerating. I mean, while those movie games were fun, Shattered Dimensions was pretty cool, and Web of Shadows, let's forget that even existed. But we've never really had a Spider-Man game to actually be a Spider-Man game. Like, one that lets us venture into a different story, because the movies went off the Sam Raimi films, and Shattered Dimensions let us do different different dimensions, and kind of not really big plot points. Insomniac was the game that made fans rejoice that Spider-Man is back and better than ever. And with next week's release of Spider-Man Miles Morales, I thought it'd be best to get this video out of the way as soon as possible, because I don't want people thinking I took all my ideas from that, because I have practically little to no clue, like everyone else, what's going on in the next game. So, get ready for Gamer K's Top 13 Marvel Spider-Man 2 predictions. So basically, when I made this list, it was basically before this game was released. Like last year, I actually did this while on a train ride back from Toronto. And basically, this list is going to be my ideas or my predictions of what could happen in the Miles Morales game, or if they decide to do a sequel game with Peter instead of Miles, once this game is over, like years into the future. Now, a couple things, like normally for a top 13 list, I usually take a little bit of rules so that nothing gets interpreted differently. But this is basically my ideas of what I think will happen in the new game next week, or ideas that could be done for the sequel game. So, get ready for my top 13 Spider-Man predictions. And why top 13? Because here at the Game Hub, only the odd can become number 1. Now let's start off this list. Number 13, one thing I really loved about the game was how vast New York felt. From the skyscrapers to the underground areas via the hideout takedowns. And just the cinematography in the game during the cutscenes is beautiful. It makes New York look vaster than it always is. And we got a bunch of cool areas. Number 13, I think they could do the map a little bit bigger in next game. Like, allow us to go to New Jersey, Staten Island. Oh wait, isn't Staten Island in New Jersey? I've never been to New York, and honestly, my reference for New York come from Friends, Law and Order, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, How I Met Your Mother. Why are all the best shows in New York? Not even going to ask that one. But I think a vaster map would work. Especially having maybe some underground sections where a good majority of it is all stealth. Because Spider-Man is basically like the Dark Knight. He's stealthy at most points, as opposed to more combat. So having underground levels could really damper some of Spider-Man's abilities. Like, he would have to web crawl more and not rely on perches or pillars. Kind of like how Batman had to work with the jammers, kind of. So a vaster map could be really, really cool. And, hello, can we go to the Statue of Liberty, please? Like, come on, at least, even for a final boss fight or something. I think that would be really cool. Coming in number 12. Something that every sequel game needs to improve on is the gadgets in a game like this. I mean, Batman upgraded a whole bunch of his I'm babbling. The Batman games upgraded a whole bunch of his arsenals in sequels. So I think upgrading a bunch of Miles' weaponry in this. I mean, obviously he's not going to have the same kind of weapons and gadgets as Peter. He may have some that are kind of the same. I really hope we get the drone again, because I really love that thing. Like, just disabling bombs, shocking enemies. And I do hope we still have the trip mines, because that was one of my favorite things. Planting a mine and having an enemy get webbed up. I would love one to go via the above. Like, if you plant one like above and the line goes down and someone walks in that area, right up. Because they did it for the walls and for the floor, so why not for the ceiling? Also, I mean, I saw some of the trophies. Apparently we have some combat upgrades for Miles that differ from Peter, which I'm all for. Not really sure what they're all about, but I really hope the gadgets are really amped up in this game. And now for ones that aren't gameplay-wise, more story-wise. Number 11 is, all honesty, Kingpin was underused in the game. He was the first boss fight and the opening to the game, which, all honesty, I did not expect to like it that much. If I ever do a top 13 list for my favorite opening boss fights, he's going on the list. But, like, they kind of played him as helping more in the demo when the game was announced. But then he's kind of shucked to the side and only done for, I don't know. But the thing is, I would love for Kingpin to break out of prison again, or to become a bigger threat in this one. And honestly, I think it could be cool, him fighting Miles Morales, in a way, because Pete's got years of experience fighting Kingpin, and it would be kind of cool to see Kingpin deal with a new Spider. And also, so we can see that clean white suit. Goddamn, the guy's a crime boss, but damn does he not know how to dress snazzy to fight. Coming in number 10, this one is based on the DLC from the game, and oh boy, I did not see it coming. Yuri Watanabe, police chief. I loved her during the game. Her and Pete's little snappy comebacks. Her kind of not trusting him fully. Kind of in the same way that Gordon didn't really fully trust Batman at times. I mean, he did trust him, but there are some points where he kind of didn't. Same kind of chemistry there with Yuri and Pete. But it was the DLC where things really got dark. And at the end of Silver Lining, I'll be doing that review next year. Things take a turn for the worse as we learn more about Yuri. Oh boy. Let's just say she kind of goes rogue in the worst way possible. I'm really hoping, like, for this, we find crime scenes that fit her motif, and then we track her down as she becomes, like, the villain that she's supposed to become, apparently, from the comics. I'm not really well-versed in the comics, but I'm really well-versed in how they can kind of twist this into a cool boss fight for Miles. So yeah, Yuri becoming Wrath would definitely be a really cool side mission. I don't want it to be a main thing, but a side mission with a really interesting boss battle. Kind of like Tombstone. Coming in at number 9. This needs to happen. I'm not kidding. Lengthier side missions. I enjoyed the side missions in the first Spider-Man game, and even the DLC gave some fun ones too. But some of them just feel like they're over right before they can even start, half of them. And all honesty, there weren't that many. From taking pictures of people to getting paint pigeons to basically doing a whole bunch of other random stuff that are all the same. I would love for new new types of side missions. Maybe, obviously I'll enjoy the bomb disabling missions. I really love the takedown missions. I really love all those. But I would like more kind of story, side missions that have a little story in between. Something to cool our jets while we're waiting for the next part of the story, which honestly is a fun part of these open world games. Having a side mission feel like you're playing another story mission while you're waiting. It's something that needs to be done. A lot of lengthy side missions, but not so many like it becomes overly crowded like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Coming in number 8. This one, I know some people may or may not agree or disagree, but if it's not done in this game, I would love to see Peter and MJ's relationship develop again. Because at the end of the DLC and everything, we see them getting back on track. And I love it. I want these two to have more moments. Maybe some, not all just romantic moments, because all those in video games are fine. But also some scenes where they argue and have a fight a lot. And especially with Miles playing Peacekeeper around in this relationship would be awesome. It would be kind of cool to see that kind of pupil-mentor dynamic and getting involved in Pete's business a little bit. I think it could make a really cool... And they could even have a side mission where he goes to MJ and helps her out despite Peter's objections about the whole thing. I think that could make for some great controversy between the two characters in the game. And if it doesn't happen in this game, it should happen in the sequel. Just gonna say. Pete and MJ forever. Number 7 is one that I really hope gets higher in the department of this game. As much as I love the villains, and I love the villains of Spider-Man. You know what? Maybe next year I'll do my top 13 Spider-Man villains. There weren't that many boss fights, which kind of sucked. I don't mean it sucked in a bad way, but in the last game, we fought Shocker twice. We tag teamed Electro, Vulture, and Rhino and Scorpion. And also, Mr. Negative was a fantastic boss fight. I'm never gonna look at a psychedelic boss fight ever again the same way. And the final boss is amazing as well. I'm not giving away spoilers for people who haven't seen it, who haven't played it, but there needs to be a lot more boss fights in this next game. Whether it be in DLC, in side missions, DLC. Okay, the DLC bosses were also really fun, but I'm just saying for the main game, there needs to be a little bit more. And I'm not just talking about fighting the same boss in another phase. I'm talking about like whoever is going to be in this game. We all saw the promo with Rhino, and come on, who's looking forward to that? I know I am. But more boss fights and good boss fights. I don't need like a DLC boss fight, not DLC, QTE boss fight in this game. I don't need anything like that. If they do it for the final segment of a boss fight, I'm perfect. I'm okay with it. Coming in number 6. Honestly, I did not see it coming in the ending. So I'm just going to put right here, spoiler alert for this number. So if you don't want to hear this one, continue to number 5. Yeah, I'm not really sure how long I'm going to be dragging about this, but Venom Unleashed. I did not see that coming at the end of the first game. And Venom... It's clear that Venom isn't a thing yet in this version of Spider-Man, which I really enjoy. I like it before there's Venom, because there's kind of that whole controversy, because if a piece of Venom gets out, and it finds Peter, kind of like how it did in the comics, in the shows, and not like the movie, that was stupid, and then we get to play as black suit Spider-Man, and not just for like a mission or two, but how about a whole chapter worth of missions where we have no choice but to be him, and we get a big boost in power, almost immunity, better spider abilities, and then at the end of the chapter we lose it all. It could be one of those segments in the game where where you get that big hulking power up and then you lose it. Kind of like every Assassin's Creed game in Ezio when he has all the cool stuff, but then he loses it. And then Kingdom Hearts, God of War 3. Okay, sequels have a tendency to reset everything, don't they? But Venom finally fighting Eddie Brock, and then we get the fight. Okay, please tell me, can you imagine how cool the boss fight between a Venom in this open world boss fight would be? It's gonna be epic if they do it. I'm just gonna say. So, but in terms of this game coming out, I can kind of see it being part of the DLC. I mean, I would really enjoy that. But enough of Venom. Let's continue. Number 5. This one might be a part of this game. It might not. And if not, it can definitely be used for the next game. Duo playing as Peter and Miles. This would be really cool because as we can see in this game, Miles has become, again, a protege to Peter. And not in a way where he'll take up the Spider-Man mantle, but he's becoming his own Spider-Man in regard, but he's still under Peter's wing and everything. And it would be really cool to have sections where we would play missions as Miles and then missions as Peter, depending on who you want to pick. Kind of like how in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, how you want to be either Jacob or Evie, depending on each side mission. Because I'm just going to say, it could be like, I don't know how to do it. Like maybe Miles has better with the combat systems, and maybe Peter with all of his gadgets and experience could do the stealth stuff more. Duo playing like that really did work in Batman Arkham Knight as well, for the couple moments we got to do it. But I still enjoyed it, and it can be implemented here in this same way. Coming in number 4. Just 1 second. There is a villain in the Batman, Spider-Man, in the Spider-Man lore that I love immensely. When I watched the 1994 cartoon, the minute this character came on screen, I fell in love with the villain. It was his wit, it was his sarcasm, it was his brain, it was his intelligence, it was his damn right creepy laugh. But the problem is, in media, he's not used as much, which sucks. I mean, they did do him in the game of Shattered Dimensions, but not the way I loved him. For those of you who are not sure who I'm talking about, Hobgoblin's debut, people! Think about it. Hobgoblin. He's very rarely used in the media. From the show, from the movies, from the video games, comics, they use him a bit, but not as much as they do the other villains. And that sucks. Not only that, but when I first saw Hobgoblin in the cartoon, he was voiced by the one and only, my idol, Mark Hamill. And because he's still alive, we can get him to voice Hobgoblin again. Because he's been Joker multiple times. Let's reprise him his role as Hobgoblin. And they can do it in a really clever way. Whereas Peter will obviously be dealing with Green Goblin in the future. Hobgoblin. Let's have Hobgoblin be Miles' villain of a goblin. And he can do so many cool things. He can constantly taunt Miles with bomb threat missions. He can go after innocent people to see how quick you'll get there. He can just taunt you nonstop. And there hasn't been an amazing version of Hobgoblin for me since the 94 cartoon. And it sucks that we don't get him more often. So that's why in this game, or hopefully the next one, Hobby makes his big debut, and it will be something for me to laugh and scream about. Coming in at number 3, this one was confirmed in the gameplay video, but I'm really hoping it's more, and not just what they show. I friggin' loved J. Jonah Jameson in the first game. Hearing his news throughout everything that happened throughout the game, whether it was a side mission stuff or the main story, Jonah just constantly, and I'm happy of what they did. They didn't show him. They just had his voice that we could hear through his radio show. And he's bashing Spider-Man as always, which I love. And now that we actually saw him in the gameplay trailer, I'm really hoping we get to see more of him. Maybe we get to drop by his office at the Daily Bugle and maybe, I don't know, like do pictures behind him in the window, cause problems for him, and maybe even save his life in a side mission or something. I would really, really love it to see more of J. Jonah Jameson in person. The voice that they got for him was absolutely perfect. It was pitch perfect. There's, aside from the guy who played him in the Raimi movies and in the cartoon, J. Jonah Jameson has been my favorite journalist, mostly because he's a bit of an A. Yeah, he's a bit of an ass. But also at times he understands when he's wrong. So I would love to see that visually in the next game. And I know we're going to see J. Jonah Jameson in the next game. I just want to see more of him. Because, come on, how can you have Spider-Man without the guy who constantly calls him a menace? I mean, it's like not having surf with your turf when you order it. You can't. You need it both. You need both, or else it's not going to be a fun meal. It's going to be okay, but it's not going to be better. Man, I've talked a lot of J. Jonah Jameson. Well, that's why he gets number 3, because he's confirmed in the game a little bit. But I'm really hoping they put him in the full game. And also his voice, and also his talk show again, because I really look forward to seeing that in the game. Coming in number 2. How many of you were really, really hoping that this would happen in the first game? I mean, we all knew about the Sinister Six, but how many of you were hoping that Osborn would don the Goblin persona? I mean, as much as I hated the sneaking around missions with Miles and MJ, the one in Osborn's place, we kind of got a sneak peek of what the Goblin stuff will be. In all honesty, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that little sneak peek that they did. Very well done, Insomnia. So does that mean we're going to get Green Goblin soon? Because, and this is how I think we can do it. I mean, obviously we've seen Green Goblin come out of desperation, insanity, being evil. We've seen multiple versions in the movies, the shows. But I think the one that, think about it. And once again, this is in relation to number 6. And if you haven't seen the ending of the game, kind of cut through this part and go right to number 1. I think, what if Osborn has reached his final moment? What if he's finally at the brink of losing what he wants more in the world? And that kind of desperation forces him to go ahead with the Goblin Project, and it slowly twists his mind, just like in the movie a little bit. I think that's something that can really benefit the game. And also, Green Goblin, let's make him not as just like Hobgoblin, but let's keep the same kind of aesthetic. Just don't do the aesthetic of the Goblin from Shattered Dimensions. Please, that's Halloween. This is future. Let's do it. And also, one thing I really loved is one Green Goblin I always loved was Steve Blum's Green Goblin from Spectacular Spider-Man. He had wit. He had charm. He had that cackly voice, so you know he's creepy and evil. We could rule New York! I loved his Green Goblin. And I would really love it if he could come on board. I'm bringing back a lot of people who did these characters as cartoons to be them in video games because, come on, they were amazing and no one can deny that. And having Green Goblin kind of be not the main focus of the game, but maybe like a side note, kind of like how Joker in Arkham City was a big thorn in the side while we were trying to discover Protocol 10, and then a whole bunch of other side stuff that kind of accumulated. Let's have Green Goblin be a distraction away from the main threat. Something like that could really make him... because they always make Goblin the villain a lot. They've constantly made him the main threat. So why not make him the side threat? I think that's something that could because I was 100% sure he was going to become Green Goblin in the last little bit of the game, and then we're going to have to do another boss fight. But nope. Saving it for a rainy day, and I really hope the rainy day is next time. Number 1. This is a villain. I've had to put serious thought into this to see how this could work in the game. And it all dawns back from the 1994 cartoon. And it constantly is on my mind of how awesome it was, this certain villain was. But at the same time, they haven't done anything with him for 20 years. Well, almost, 20-ish years. They haven't done anything with this villain, and I came up with the perfect way to make him a threat, a real amazing threat in the game. Alistair Smythe and the Spider Slayers is my number 1 prediction for Miles Morales Spider-Man or Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Okay. For those of you who don't know, Alistair Smythe was the son of a brilliant scientist who was working for the Kingpin in order to get Alistair kind of help him because he was in a wheelchair. Now, Alistair's father dies practically in the first episode, if I recall, of the series. And then Smythe is using his genius and his technology to help Kingpin take out the Spider-Man. This is where it could be. Smythe can still be in the wheelchair. They can play it off as nothing, kind of like they did Doc Ock, but then they had an amazing, slow burn, you know it's going to happen, but at the same time you hope it doesn't because you've grown attached. They could do something like that. Maybe Smythe could be, I don't know, Miles' old classmate or something. Not best friend, because that's going too much into what Doc Ock and Harry was in the last game. But they can just do it, be a classmate who, I don't know why, doesn't like Miles for some reason, and he's working with other villains. And throughout the game, we have to get rid of smaller Slayer drones, and then becomes the big ones for the boss fights. We got the Black Widow. We've got the Tarantula. We got the Scorpion. Not Gargus. Not Gargan. Actual robotic spider. I mean, think of the possibilities we can do. For the Black Widow, it could be a hide-and-seek boss fight where it's tracking you down and you gotta sneak up behind it. For the Tarantula, it could be ground-based where it's moving. Maybe it's got a detonation sequence on it and you gotta stop it before it gets to its spot. Using your webbing, using the environment around you to stop it, and then hammer it home. And then the Scorpion can just be in this wide open area and an actual boss fight. Because the way they did Alistair Smythe in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game, yeah, okay, for people who have a picture of that Alistair Smythe from the game, I'm going to take that Alistair Smythe and put it in the garbage because that's where that one belongs. And trust me, this Alistair Smythe is going to be a real threat. And then later in the game, after the Spider Slayers prove that they are not working, Smythe decides to up the ante and turn himself into a Spider Slayer mute abomination. Not like the one in the cartoon where it was kind of weird to tell what he was, but just make him kind of a hybrid of all the spiders, kind of like a scorpion, a tarantula face, legs of a black widow, and claws of a scorpion set on him, and just make him mutated. And then he decides to purge society. And the perfect voice for Alistair Smythe has to be Robbie Draymond from Persona 5. I think he could nail the role, being that confident and deceitful character, while at the same time, when he releases his real evilness, it will work in spades. So I really hope they do Alistair Smythe in the sequel game, because if they don't do it in this one, I really hope they do it, because Alistair Smythe, much like Hobgoblin for me, is an underappreciated villain who has not gotten a spotlight in years. How many times are we going to have to see Goblin or Venom take the center stage as a villain? A whole bunch of side villains got to become amazing villains in the game. I just hope that Smythe is one of them to get the big spotlight as the great villain of the next game. And I really hope that happens. And that's it for this week, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you enjoyed the list. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And next week, it will be my birth week. The week of my birthday. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a game review where we're going to rock out and blow the roof off. This is Gamer K, logging out.